Good morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Bit of an overcast day. The weather here in Calgary is kind of, you'll notice every day I kind of talk about the weather. I don't think it can be avoided when you've been gardening for as long as I do. Every morning when I wake up, I have a coffee before I get going. I go on my computer. One of the very first tab I open is always my music. The second tab is always my soccer, and the third tab is always weather. Priorities, people. You'll notice there's no work email in there or anything like that, but I always have the weather open. I've always got it open on my desktop in my office. It's very important being a gardener, and not even from a business standpoint. I want to know, can I put my tomatoes out today? Do I need to keep them inside? Is it a good day to harden off, or is it a good day to just leave them be? So I always look at the weather, but yeah, a bit overcast. The weather is changing. We're on a little bit of a downturn. Better than Edmonton. They got snow overnight. Well deserved. Well deserved. That's all I have to say. I'm just kidding. I got friends in Edmonton. I feel bad for them. I really do. But yeah, we're on a bit of a downturn, but that's spring. It's like autumn. You know, you can have a gorgeous autumn. You're going to get some cold, rainy days in an autumn. We take it as it comes, and we just ride it out together. If you got your plants in the ground, you might want to look at a frost blanket. Frost blankets, depending on how many you've got. If you got planters, or if you're still hardening off like I am, inside, outside, keep that going. So this week we've been talking about soil. We're going to continue to talk about soil. And one of the subjects I want to get into today is soil pH. And a lot of people don't understand that. I find it's a rather confusing topic. It's up there with fertilizers on what people understand. And it's not helped with there being a very prevalent urban myth here in Calgary that our soil is very acidic. It isn't. It's got nothing. Even the soil under your spruce tree won't have much more acidity, if any more acidity, than your soil that isn't under a spruce tree. In Calgary, we have a very high calcium count in our water, and we've got a very solid clay base. Both of those are fantastic pH buffers. So they keep it relatively neutral. So that myth that, oh no, the acidity because of my spruce tree is just that, a myth. I'm here to dispel it. Get out of here, myth. And then another one I'll dispel right off the bat as well is lawns. The amount of times people come up to us and their dog has killed their lawn because of the acidity in the dog pee. It's not the acidity at all. It's actually the high nitrogen content in the pee. So if you take your lawn fertilizer and you've got your applicator, you're fertilizing your lawn, take a handful of that and throw a handful on the ground, you're gonna have a brown spot. That massive high nitrogen content burns the roots. The problem with dogs as well is that they go to the same spot over and over and over again, resulting in a massively high nitrogen content. Now, a lot of times this happens after the winter. So remember we talked about fertilizer, how if a plant wasn't actively growing, it couldn't absorb. So this nitrogen is just sitting there burning the roots. So those are a couple of myths I want to dispel. So what is pH? Very simply, pH measures hydrogen ions in any kind of solution or any kind of product. And it measures whether that item is acidity or alkali. So basically, your pH scale looks something like this. Very, very rough drawing. Okay? That's 14, that's 0, and that's 7. 7 is neutral, okay? Best example of that is pure water. Water, no pH, okay? Or a 7 pH, I shouldn't say no. But it's just completely neutral pH. A 0, we're talking battery acid, incredibly high acidity, 14, incredibly high basicity, and we're looking at like drain cleaners, lye, bleach, that kind of thing. And what happens, I think everybody knows, you take an acid like vinegar, and you take a base or an alkali like baking soda, mix them together, you're gonna get a chemical reaction. So it's very based in that. Now, how does this apply to your soil, and why is it important? So essentially, like I said, this simply means the hydrogen ions that are in there. Now, when your plant is in the soil, so you've got your plant, and it's growing here, and it's having a good time, and its roots are under the soil. There is, I believe, 14 of the 17 essential nutrients that a plant needs to live are found in the soil. Now, we all know NPK. We've talked about that with our fertilizers, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. There's also boron, zinc, magnesium, chlorine, copper. There's more. I honestly can't list them all off the top of my head. If I had more time to sit and think, I could probably get them out. But they're all in there. The other 3, by the way, are gases. Okay, and they're in the air, and that's how the plant breathes through the stomata in the leaf, part of the photosynthesis. But anyway, we're talking about the nutrients. So as we know, as we've touched on, plants get their food, their energy from photosynthesis. So light hits, sugars, the gas exchange, we know all of that. The sugars go down into the roots. But they also need those essential nutrients to survive. Well, all that means is you get a better dissolved rate of those essential nutrients if your soil pH is between 6 and 7. So all of the people that come in and they're like, oh, I got a spruce tree, I need to kill the acidity, and you're trying to neutralize your soil or bringing it into a base, you're actually being more detrimental to your plants. Leaving an acidity in a soil at around 6 to 7 allows those essential. So let's say we're talking about nitrogen, okay? We're talking about dog pee with high nitrogen. Okay, so let's stay on that. So you fertilize your plant, okay? Wonderful. You've put nitrogen into the soil. Now, you check your soil pH. Now, say your soil pH is at a 5, okay? Way lower than the 6 that it needs to be, it's at a 5. Or, let's go over to this side, you're at an 8. That water is gonna hit the nitrogen, it's gonna break it down, but it's not gonna allow it to be at a dissolvable rate where the plant can take it up. So your plant's roots can't bring up a solid, they can't bring up a nitrogen particle. They have to bring up a dissolved nitrogen particle in water. Again, another reason I love water soluble, that's a whole other story, that's back to fertilizer. We're not discussing fertilizer. So as that nitrogen dissolves in the water, it has a better uptake. And the prime uptake range is between 6 and 7. Now, there are certain plants that prefer otherwise. So blueberry, look at this. It's even got its flowers on it. They're going to turn into little blueberries. Delicious. This guy likes an acidic soil. The lilac likes a base soil. So what I'm saying there, these guys don't play well together. You put them in a flower bed. Now they may live, okay? Don't get me wrong. You put your lilac right next to this, but you're more concerned with growing food, so you're acidifying the soil. Now let's say you're acidifying, you're using an aluminum sulfate, or you're using a peat moss. Peat moss is around 4.4 on the acidic scale, so it's sitting somewhere around there, okay? And you acidify all of this. Well, the roots of the lilac, we know how roots grow when they get into the soil, they're gonna get in there. Now, the acidity isn't gonna hurt them, but that acidity and the dissolving rate of the nutrients, this plant won't be able to uptake them. And what it can uptake isn't gonna be enough. So a lot of times people will say, oh, my lilac isn't blooming. What's the problem? and they'll fertilize and fertilize and fertilize it. Well, fertilize all you want, but if your pH is off, it's not going to happen. So you may need to add a dolomitic lime and kill the acidity around your lilac so it can get up there. Now, if you really want to know, we have got soil pH test kits, okay? But as I said at the beginning, try to remember that our soil is very close to neutral in all of Calgary. And I'm talking broad strokes. Obviously, there's microcosms and things happening all over the place. But in a very, very broad sweep, our soil is quite neutral and slightly acidic. That's a great thing. You've already got a good base. If you're having trouble, you're fertilizing your tree, you've added compost, you've done all of that, and your lilac isn't blooming, maybe you want to do a quick soil pH test to make sure. But a good rule of thumb is if you understand what your plant needs going in, so you know, let's talk about the blueberry. You know that your blueberry, sorry, I love lilacs, but we've been talking about him too much. I don't want this guy to feel left out. So you know your blueberry likes acidity. Maybe you use cocoa coir through all of your beds. But then you get to your bed and you've got your blueberry and you've got your raspberry growing there as well. And you're like, oh, they like acidity. Well, maybe you're going to add some peat moss, okay? Like I said, the peat moss is coming in at 4.4. It's going to acidify the soil. Therefore, the breakdown of the nutrients in there is going to happen at the correct ratio for this guy to be happy and be able to uptake those nutrients. Because again, you're putting that nutrient into the soil and you're adding the nitrogen and you add a volcanic mineral and a compost and you're putting all that organic material in. And as a result, you're putting in, the nitrogen, the phosphates, the magnesium, the manganese, the zinc, copper, chlorine, boron, iron. All of that is going into the soil with what you're adding. But if the plant can't uptake it, it's like when you go to the buffet and there's a sneeze guard and you can't get to the food. The plant can see it, it knows it's there, but it can't get to it. So basically, your pH buffer is your sneeze guard. Okay, and you want to remove that sneeze guard so that your plants can get to the buffet. So very broad stroke on pH. Hopefully that clears some things up. Hopefully it dispels some common misconceptions of pH and soil acidity and the fact that, having an acidic soil is not a bad thing. This is your optimal range. There are other factors, of course, in play. Warmth, the looseness of the soil. If you're in a really heavy clay and those roots can't grow and they can't get to the nutrients, again, there's no point doing it. So there's a lot at play. But this subject, I find, it leaves a lot of people going, I never knew that. Like the amount of times I see a person speaks to me about a dog pea spot that's brown, and they're like, it's the acidity. Nope, it is the nitrogen. So there you go. That wraps it up. Obviously, I could have talked for longer. I wanted to, but I don't have the time. And that wraps us up to the on pH. Tune in tomorrow. We'll wrap everything up with soil. And then don't forget, Friday, Hawaiian Q&A. And Saturday, we got a webinar for you guys. Take care. Enjoy the weather. Hey, we need all kinds of weather to have a successful garden. Maybe not -40. But take care. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everyone.